The living room went quiet. The cameras kept rolling, and Michael Strahan was looking at Prince Harry with an expression that had nothing to do with television. It was the look of someone who just heard something that didn't compute. Michael had asked a simple question. Harry's response made Michael pause. So Michael asked again. Different angle. Harry's second response was worse. Then Michael did something he rarely does in interviews. What Harry said in response to Michael's vulnerability made the bridge collapse. What Michael said after that made Harry stand up. And what happened in the final 90 seconds would be discussed on every sports and news program before the day was over. This is the interview that revealed everything. Subscribe now, hit that notification bell, and let's see what happened. The interview location had been carefully chosen, a neutral living room in Manhattan, styled to feel intimate without belonging to either party. GMA's special one-on-one format required this kind of setting. Michael Strahan had done dozens of these deep-dive conversations with presidents, with athletes, with people at the peak of achievement, and people at the bottom of crisis. Harry arrived with security that seemed excessive for a private interview. Multiple guards, a publicist, someone whose job appeared to be looking worried. He walked into the space with controlled precision, shook Michael's hand firmly, settled into the interview chair with careful attention to camera angles. Harry, thanks for sitting down with me. Michael, I've admired your career for years. Likewise, let's have a real conversation. The recording began. I want to start somewhere fundamental, Michael said, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. You've talked a lot about finding purpose after leaving the royal life. What does that purpose look like day to day? Walk me through a typical week. Harry's expression settled into something camera-ready. My weeks vary. Foundation work, project development, family time. Break that down for me. The foundation work. What does a day of that involve? Meetings with who? Decisions about what? Strategy sessions, partnership discussions, content development. With who specifically? I've worked with foundations. I know how they operate. Who's in those rooms with you? A pause. Our executive team, external partners. Names? I'm genuinely curious. When I work with my charities, I know everyone by name. Who's driving Archwell day to day? Various talented individuals. That's not an answer. That's a category. When I played football, I could name every coach, every coordinator, every trainer who helped me succeed. You can't name the people running your organization? The warmth in the room had already begun to cool. Let me share something with you, Michael said, his voice shifting to something personal. I grew up in a military family. We moved constantly. I wasn't supposed to make it to the NFL. I was too small, too slow, came from nowhere anyone had heard of. Everything I have, I earned through work, through failure, through getting up when I was knocked down. He paused, letting the words land. When I ask about your work, I'm asking as someone who knows what building something actually feels like. The daily grind, the setbacks, the moments when nobody believes in you, but you have to believe in yourself. What does that feel like for you? Harry seemed momentarily off balance. I've faced my share of challenges. What challenges specifically? In building Archwell, what obstacles have you overcome? The media narrative. That's external perception. I'm asking about operational challenges. Hiring the wrong person, a project failing, a partnership falling through. The stuff that happens when you're actually building something. We've had to adjust strategies. Adjust how? Based on what feedback? What did you try that didn't work, and what did you learn from it? Silence stretched. Michael let it breathe. The silence tells me something. When I ask other entrepreneurs about their failures, they can't stop talking. Failures teach more than successes. The fact that you can't access any suggests either there haven't been any, which is impossible, or you're not close enough to the work to know about them. The staff situation, Michael continued. Multiple communications directors, high turnover across the board. What's happening there? Transitions happen in every organization. At your rate? I've run businesses. I've been part of organizations that succeed and ones that fail. High turnover is a symptom. What's the underlying condition? Working for high-profile figures involves unique pressures. I'm high profile. My teams stay. Your sister-in-law is higher profile. Her teams stay for decades. Profile isn't the variable. What is? Harry's expression hardened. I won't speculate about internal dynamics. It's not speculation when the pattern is documented. Multiple outlets, anonymous reports, consistent descriptions. Either everyone's lying or something's actually happening. Which is it? People with grudges tell stories. People with experiences share patterns. When multiple independent sources describe similar conditions, that's not grudges. That's data. Harry grabbed his water. His hand was trembling slightly. This is becoming hostile. This is becoming specific. You're confusing the two. The wedding this weekend, Michael said. Peter Phillips, your cousin. You weren't invited. Family gathering you were excluded from. How does that sit? We had other commitments. Other commitments on a Saturday. More important than family? What were they? Private engagements. Private engagements that prevented you from attending a family celebration. In the country you've said you want to reconnect with. That seems contradictory. The situation is complicated. Situations become complicated when we make them complicated. Family weddings are simple. You show up or you don't. What specifically prevented showing up? Security concerns. Your father's the king. The security was handled. What else? Relationship dynamics, which you've contributed to. The book, the interviews, the documentaries. You damaged relationships publicly, and now you're surprised they're damaged. The causation isn't mysterious. Harry stood up partially. You don't understand royal family dynamics. I understand family, period. Every family has dynamics. Most families don't monetize their conflicts. What makes yours different? Let me tell you something about myself, Michael said, his voice softening. When I won the Super Bowl in 2007, it was the culmination of 15 years of work. Thousands of practices, hundreds of games, injuries that almost ended my career, moments when I doubted everything. That trophy meant something because it cost something. He looked directly at Harry. What have you won that cost you something? Not inherited, won. Not given, earned. What have you achieved through effort that you're genuinely proud of? My military service, which was shaped by your royal status. Genuine service, yes, but different from a regular soldier's experience. What else? Invictus Games, which you attend as royalty, not as builder. The games existed before you championed them. You added profile, not creation. What have you created from nothing? Archwell, which we've discussed. No measurable outcomes, high staff turnover, no specific accomplishments you can name. What have you built that would exist regardless of who your parents were? The silence was devastating. I thought so. When I ask what you've earned, the answer is nothing that doesn't trace back to birth. That's not achievement. That's inheritance. And inheritance is fine, but don't call it earning. Your children, Michael said. Archie and Lilibet. You've said you want them to know their heritage, to have relationships with their grandfather, their cousins. Yet you maintain distance that prevents those relationships. What's the plan? We're navigating complex circumstances. Children don't navigate complex circumstances. They navigate presence and absence. Right now, they have absence from their British family. That's not complexity. That's choice. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. I co-parent across coasts. I know about making difficult logistics work. When you want something for your kids, you find a way. The absence suggests you don't actually want what you claim to want. Security prevents certain visits. Security you're actively litigating, which keeps the conflict alive rather than resolving it. You could accept different arrangements. You're choosing continued battle. I'm protecting my family. From what? From their grandfather? From their cousins? From their heritage? What specific threat requires complete isolation from extended family? Harry's face had gone red. You don't understand the institution. I understand families. The institution is irrelevant to birthday calls, to video chats, to relationships that don't require physical presence. What's preventing those? I've done thousands of interviews, Michael said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. Athletes, presidents, entrepreneurs, regular people with extraordinary stories. Almost all of them could articulate what they've built, could name specific accomplishments, could access genuine moments of pride and struggle. He paused. You can't do any of that. Every question about achievement gets deflected. Every question about relationships gets blamed on circumstances. Every question about your children gets absorbed into security concerns. At some point, the pattern becomes the story. Harry stood up fully. What pattern? The pattern of someone who describes achievement without demonstrating it, who claims victimhood without taking responsibility, who invokes family while preventing family relationships. The pattern is contradiction, and contradiction, when confronted, collapses. I've achieved plenty. Name it. Right now. One thing you've achieved that has nothing to do with your parents, your title, or your royal history. One thing that exists because of Harry, not because of Prince Harry. Silence. That's the answer. When pressed, nothing emerges. The achievement you describe exists in narrative only, not in reality. Harry grabbed his jacket. This interview is over. Michael remained seated, completely calm. The interview was over before it started, because there was nothing to interview. I asked about your work. You couldn't describe it. I asked about your team. You couldn't name them. I asked about your accomplishments. You had none to share. What was there to discuss? I've shared my journey extensively. You've shared your narrative extensively. Journey implies movement toward something. What are you moving toward? After 5 years outside the institution, what have you built? What exists? Arkwell exists. As a concept, as a website, as a press release, not as measurable impact, not as documented outcomes, not as something anyone can point to and say, that changed because Archwell existed. Harry moved toward the door. You've judged me without knowing me. I've asked you to show me yourself. You couldn't. The judgment isn't mine. It's the absence of anything to judge. Harry paused at the edge of the room. You don't understand what it's like to walk away from everything. Michael stood now, his full height commanding the space. I walked away from football, the only thing I'd ever known, the only thing I was ever good at. I walked into broadcasting with no experience, no guarantee, nothing but the work ethic I'd built over decades. I earned my place here, game by game, interview by interview, year after year. His voice carried genuine emotion. When I ask what you've earned, I'm asking as someone who knows what earning actually costs. The doubt, the failure, the slow climb. You can't answer because you haven't climbed. You've descended from privilege and called it ascent. Those are different things. Harry left. The living room door closed behind him. Michael stood alone in the interview space for a long moment. Then he turned to his producer. That was something. What happened? Nothing happened. That's the point. I asked the simplest questions about work, about accomplishment, about what he's built. He couldn't answer any of them. Not because he was hiding something, because there was nothing there. Will we air it? Every second. Because it matters. People need to see what unearned confidence looks like when it meets basic accountability. They need to see the difference between narrative and reality. He sat back down slowly. I came from nothing, built everything through work. When I ask someone what they've built, I'm asking because I respect building. What I saw today was someone who's never built anything, but talks like he's built everything. That gap is the whole story. The footage aired that day. ABC made no edits. The clips that spread captured the collision between earned success and inherited platform. You can't name the people running your organization? When I ask other entrepreneurs about their failures, they can't stop talking. What have you built that would exist regardless of who your parents were? Don't call inheritance earning. You've descended from privilege and called it ascent. Those are different things. Harry's team released a statement calling the appearance a predetermined attack by someone unfamiliar with the complexities of transition from public service. Michael addressed it on GMA the following morning. Predetermined? I asked what he's accomplished. He couldn't tell me. I asked who runs his foundation. He couldn't name anyone. I asked about failures he's learned from. Silence. The attack he's describing is simply someone who's actually built things, asking someone who claims to have built things what they've built. He added, I've interviewed people who've achieved extraordinary things, and people who've overcome extraordinary obstacles. They all had specifics. He had nothing. That's not my judgment. That's the interview. For Michael Strahan, the interview became a demonstration of the difference between platform and achievement. Proof that decades of real work created a standard against which empty claims collapsed. For Prince Harry, it was devastating in a particular way. Michael wasn't hostile media. Michael was someone who genuinely earned everything through decades of grinding work. Being unable to answer his questions suggested something beyond media management could address. But for the millions who watched, something else emerged. The contrast between Michael, Super Bowl rings, Hall of Fame bust, broadcasting career built interview by interview, and Harry's inability to name a single concrete accomplishment told its own story. Michael had asked what Harry had earned. The answer was nothing. Michael had asked what Harry had built. The silence was deafening. Michael had asked for specifics. None were available. And in that absence, in that complete vacuum where achievement should have been, everything anyone needed to know about the difference between inheriting platform and earning success became impossible to ignore. Some people build things. Others inherit them. Michael asked which applied. Harry couldn't answer. A Super Bowl champion, a Hall of Famer, someone who earned everything. And Harry couldn't name a single thing he'd built. What does that tell you about the difference between real achievement and inherited platform? If you want more content that knows the difference, subscribe. This is where the real conversations live. Turn on notifications. Don't miss what matters. More questions, more accountability. More of what earned success actually looks like. Stay with us.